Have you ever woke up in the middle of a dream and the dream was so interesting that you wanted to go back to sleep to see the end of it? If so, what was the dream? I had a nightmare a couple of years back, and I still remember some bits. I was in a city where there was an outbreak of a disease. Infected people would start leaking black stuff from their eyes and noses and attack non-infected people. For some reason, I was walking in a part of the city that was completely deserted a couple days after the outbreak. Very faintly I heard someone crying. I approached and found out that it came from a backyard. If I wanted to see who it was, I had to climb a high fence. When I walked into the backyard I was f***ing horrified. There was a crying little kid, like 3 years old on a leash, tied to a pole. I didn't dare to approach, because that child was leaking black stuff from the nose. I woke up after this, and was still horrified. The parents had to leave their child who was still alive, chained to a pole outside. That f***ed me up for a couple of days. I would watch this movie. I dreamt that I was part of some Eastern European resistance movement who had to speak in code and hide out in abandoned manors in the forest to plan our attacks against some fascist regime. We enlisted the Pope to help us, but when we went to meet him he has double-crossed us because the regime we were fighting somehow knew the Pope was gay and was going to tell everyone. I woke up then, not knowing if my resistance group was executed, or if we escaped somehow. I call it my gay Pope dream. Bro. This is awesome. My dreams are just random like walking in a forest. You're out there fighting fascists with a homosexual Catholic. I learned I could fly, but I had to teach myself. Woke up right as I was gearing up for the big test to see how high I could go. Forced myself back to sleep, and let me tell ya, flying in a dream is way too f***ing fun. I always have dreams where I can fly for about 2 minutes until I realize how cool it is, then I fall to the ground and can't figure out how to fly again. It's very frustrating. That's because you're thinking about it. If Hitchhiker's Guide to the Galaxy taught me anything, it's that if I want to fly then I absolutely cannot think at all about flying while I'm flying. That's exactly why, not even joking. If you worry about monsters showing up, then they'll show up. It's why chase dreams are so thrilling. You're always thinking about getting away, so naturally you never get away. You can only dream about things you think about, so the result should be obvious. You dream more about things you think about the most. Similarly, the more you think about something, the more realistic it becomes. If you think hard about jumping, then you think about the properties of the act of jumping. Then you realize that you're jumping way too high, and suddenly you can't anymore. If you just accept it and think, I guess I can jump really high. Cool. Then you'll be able to do it for as long as you just accept that it is a property of you. Man, I can never fly in my dreams, only breathe underwater. And the only way I find out I'm in a lucid dream is surviving after the horror of thinking I'm about to drown to death. But breathing underwater in a dream is pretty damn cool too. I used to have lucid dreams in my early to mid-20s. As soon as I'd realize I was asleep, I'd start flying or just rising to the ceiling because it was a cool way to test it. Then my immediate thought would be, WHO, should I pretend sleep with? And the excitement of that possibility woke me up every damn time. A moment for our fallen bro. The tragedy of Icarus. I've gone lucid a handful of times, never intentionally, and the one that I remember most is when a mirror in my dream triggered the "hey, I might be dreaming" sensation. I did a reality check where I tried to push a finger through my palm and it went through and instantly went lucid. I like the sensation of being able to feel things in lucid dreams, so I went to put my hand on the bathroom wall and my hand went through it too, and I started tumbling into oblivion and woke up. I haven't used that reality check since. Was exploring a jungle with a group of, I assume, friends. We ended up discovering some kind of temple, but it was dark, so we decided to set up camp. I was charged with gathering dry wood and leaves for the fire. While making my way through vines, I heard my name being screamed by one of the group members in a terrified way, repeatedly. Woke up to see my mom yelling my name and to get the fuck up already. I never found out what that temple was. I'm not joking about this at all. Same dream, and I've had it multiple times. We're exploring after finding the temple, I guess. It was always a very obviously ancient but important ruin that we had to explore. I get tasked with finding brush or twigs or dry wood. I'm walking around and I just hear the scariest shrill. I run and a man is there. He ties me to a barbecue grill and asks me to pick a war. I wake up. Almost every time I've had this dream I've thought the scream was from my little sister, even though I show up and no one except the man and the grill and some wolves are there. I like people's interpretations that these are all dreams that might relate back to more nomadic or caveman times. But pick a war? I still wonder all the time what that could mean. I was once in the middle of a dream sitting in the back seat of a car with my brother next to me in the back and my two sisters in the front. At some point I realized I was dreaming and I said something off script from the dream, and suddenly all the other people in the car were just slowly turning towards me with just pure dark holes where their faces were. That fucked up my day. I had a dream where I was riding ATVs with some friends and we came across this house that was under construction. We played some games and then went to sleep. In the dream I woke up and saw a pair of legs swinging through a gap near the floor in the unfinished wall, and knew instantly that I was just sleeping next to a suicide victim. I was filled with such a feeling of dread. I think it's the most vivid thing I've ever felt in a dream. I once dreamt that all of my family and closest friends were on the world's largest cruise ship. Along the way, we somehow were exposed to radioactive waste that gave us all superpowers or other mutations. I remember so vividly being able to use my mind to move objects with ease, and I threw donuts at my brother, whose skin had turned as hard as stone. This one girl on the cruise that we all universally hated, for reasons I can't remember, received a really random and useless mutation. She grew a really fat lizard tail, like a leopard gecko who has eaten a lot lol. She was crying about how ugly she was now and all we could do was laugh. Then I woke up. A long time ago, I had a dream that there were ghosts living in my family's garage. Nowhere else, just the garage. I somehow became friends with one, but she was unable to speak to me, leave the property that the house was on, and wasn't able to show any facial expressions that wouldn't be considered terrifying. Me and my ghost friend were playing on the house porch and two guys were trying to break into the house. She tried to stop them by scaring the living heck out of them by making a terrifying face and screaming the most blood-curdling scream ever right in their faces. I wasn't able to see the face she made, but I somehow knew it was there, and all I could hear was the scream. The people trying to rob the house ran off, but instead of celebrating, I curled up and started crying because of how terrifying the scream was. I absolutely loved that ghost, and I forgot that her whole purpose was to scare people, but she did it to protect me in the house. I still cry though, and she tried to cheer me up the best way she could. Then I woke up. I knew that was a dream, but I didn't want to leave my ghost friend alone, knowing the last time she saw me was when she scared me to tears by accident. I tried to go back to sleep, and I did, and I somehow successfully re-entered the dream, only it was several years in the future. The garage still had a couple of ghosts in it, but not nearly as much, and the rest seemed to be oblivious to humans. I was going into the attic and found some pictures in there of me around the age I was friends with the ghost, and on a picture I saw a very faint image of her face standing next me. I went down the attic and woke up. I didn't get to tell the ghost that I forgive her or anything, and I still feel some sort of emotional attachment to her. It was probably the best nightmare I've ever had, and one of the dreams I've wanted to go back to the most, just so I can tell her that there are no hard feelings. I have a story about when the opposite of this happened. It was a fucking epic fantasy dream. Let me tell ya. Evil wizard of some sort that I'm pretty sure was my 8th grade math teacher, kidnapped princess, a worthless but snappy sidekick that was my best friend IRL. This dream had everything. So I beat the bad guy, rescued the princess and brought her back to a village of, I think Ewoks or something, I dunno. Big celebration, everybody went hooray and stuff, and then it didn't end. We just kinda stood there looking at each other. It felt like a long time. Ewoks just kinda start milling around and doing their everyday shit. Made some small talk with the princess. And then eventually the dream ended and I woke up. It was a strange one. I had one where I was wandering through my hometown for what felt like hours, and eventually the dream became lucid. And the dream dragged on, and I was just walking around looking at stuff. Eventually I started thinking that I'm probably late for school, since the dream went on for so long, and I tried to figure out a way to get myself to wake up. I tried lying down on the ground and thought that people walking on me would probably do it. But it didn't. I didn't feel a thing. So I lied down in the middle of the road and a car hit me. And right before it hit me I woke up. In the middle of the night. This reminds me of one of my favorite dreams. I don't necessarily remember what most of the dream was, but I do know that I was volunteering at this large place. My alarm clock in real life started to ring, and at first everyone in the building was shocked. We questioned whether it was a fire alarm or something else, and then I came to the conclusion, oh, that's my alarm clock. This is a dream. But instead of waking up I told the people I was working with that I had to leave because it was time for me to get up. I took whatever I was working on and I went over to put it down, said bye to everyone there, and woke up just as I opened the front doors of the building. Please consider liking, commenting and subscribing.